Caution! The AJ and Quill show contains D&D content and is intended for a D&D audience. And, besides that, they're really weird. Hi everyone, welcome to Meta Adjacent, your stop for player tactics in 5th edition. I'm Professor AJ, and with me as always is my fearless companion, Quill the Dragon. Say hi, Quill.
Greetings, puny humans. Prepare to absorb the knowledge Quill will dispense with his mighty jaws.
Well, that bell means class has started, so pull out some 20-sided dice and a character sheet and let's get going.
So, what are we covering today?
Today we're excited to be covering Auroboros, Coils of the Serpent.
It's the new campaign setting from War Chief Gaming.
Now, Auroboros, Coils of the Serpent is a 5e campaign setting by Chris Metzen and War Chief Gaming. Now, the first release into this universe is the world book, Lawbrand. Now, Lawbrand is based on the childhood campaign that Chris ran with his friends back in the 80s and 90s. And that's before heading off to Blizzard and to work on things like Warcraft and Starcraft and so much more.
That's awesome.
And today we're doing a review of the Souleater Warlock, a new Warlock subclass released with this campaign setting.
Well, let's not waste any more time.
Warlock, the Souleater, devourers of mind and spirit. Warlocks in Lawbrand are granted their power by Karybdiss, the Souleater, a hydra-like beast that is sustained by the souls of the living. These twisted magic users can warp the minds of others with their auras and harness Karybdiss's power to absorb souls themselves. This is not without its faults, however. Carrying another being's soul can be a terrible burden on oneself, but the power afforded by it is immeasurable. That's a pretty sweet patron, and Greek mythology and the English heavy metal rock band aside, there's definitely some strong Warhammer vibes coming from this creature.
Keep in mind you could absolutely reflavor this for your campaign setting.
Right, Dendar the World Serpent, Adar, any devil or demon that would want souls. You can basically reflavor this for anything you'd like. Now this Warlock actually comes with a new Warlock Pact and some new Invocations. The Pact of the Ink. Your patron gifts you a magical needle and ink allowing you to scribe spells onto yourself in the form of tattoos. Once per long rest, you can scribe one of your known spells onto your skin using the magical ink and needle. The skin etchings glow with a faint, sickly green light. Once the spell is scribed, you are free to cast it without consuming a spell slot as a bonus action, but the tattoo is consumed. You can't cast another spell in the same round that you use this bonus action. Scribing yourself with a tattoo takes about 30 minutes, and you can only have one spell scribed on your skin at a time. Now, I love the flavor of that pact, but there's some obvious issues with it.
It's kind of wordy.
Right, and saying once per long rest and it taking 30 minutes to do is going to get a little annoying to manage every day.
It also doesn't address what happens if you lose your needle and ink.
Now, a better way to do this would be just to make it so that it's something you do as part of a long rest. That would still limit it, and you don't have to deal with this 30-minute thing.
Now, essentially what this is doing is giving you one free use of the Quicken spell meta magic.
Right, and any class can even get one of these just by picking a feat. Because of this, we don't think there's really any reason to bother limiting the number of spells you can cast in a whole round just because you use this pact.
You can take the bit about not being able to cast other spells that round completely out.
And we think a better way to write this out would be, your patron gifts you a magical needle and a 1-ounce bottle of ink, allowing you to scribe spells onto yourself in the form of tattoos. Once, as part of a long rest, you can scribe one of your known spells onto your skin using these implements. The spell must have a casting time of 1 action, and you can only have 1 spell tattoo at a time. Once the spell is scribed, you can cast that spell from the tattoo as a bonus action. The spell tattoo vanishes from your skin when you cast it or when you finish your next long rest. If you lose your needle and or ink, you can perform a 1-hour ceremony to receive a replacement from your patron. I think this is a better way to say that, and it addresses a few more of the issues that we brought up.
Eldritch Invocations.
Hellion of the Souleater. Now this requires the Pact of the Ink. It says Hellish Rebuke is added to your spell list. Well, already that's an issue because Hellish Rebuke is already on the Warlock spell list.
We think they mean spells known.
Once per long rest, you can cast Hellish Rebuke without consuming a spell slot. Okay, we know what they're going for here, but it's being worded in a weird way.
It'd be easier to phrase it more like how the Fathomless Warlock does it.
You learn the spell Hellish Rebuke, but it doesn't count against the number of spells you know. You can cast it once without a spell slot, and you regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. This is a simpler way to phrase that, and it takes some of the confusion out of the language. Soul Feast. Requires Pact of the Ink from a 12th level Warlock. you are able to increase your exhaustion level by 3 in order to regain all spent spell slots.
Now that's really expensive because exhaustion is a dick mechanic.
Right, the exhaustion is really hard on a character, which is why it's awesome they're using it, but that's a bit much all at once.
We think it would be a better ability if you could customize it more.
So we think it would be better if it was phrased more like, once per long rest, as an action, you can gain exhaustion to recover spell slots. You can gain up to 3 levels of exhaustion, recovering a single spell slot for each level of exhaustion gained. Now this lets them fine-tune that ability a little bit more, where they can take 1, 2, or 3 levels of exhaustion and gain that many spell slots back, instead of having to take 3 every time.
And because it seems D&D is going this way, you could even have it based around your proficiency bonus.
Now this Warlock does have an expanded spell list like all Warlocks. Here it is. Now we see a problem right off the start. This is an expanded spell list.
It's not like a cleric where they get these spells automatically.
Right, see, Warlocks get a limited pool of spells that they can choose from. The expanded spell list expands that based on their patron so that they have more options to choose.
But if you put spells on the expanded spell list that the Warlock can already cast, you just wasted a feature.
Charm Person, Hold Person, and Suggestion are all already on the Warlock spell list. Putting them here is meaningless. You might as well have written Eldritch Blast. Now some different options they could use for level 1 spells would be Inflict Wounds, Healing Word, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Dissonant Whispers.
And for level 2, they could use Phantasmal Force, Detect Thoughts, Melf's Acid Arrow, Spiritual Weapon, or Silence.
And if you look here, the Warlock can already access Bestow Curse and Confusion via their invocations.
Now it's fine to do this. Wizards have even done it themselves a few times.
Right, so if you believe that the spell that they could get from that invocation is intrinsic to the Warlock's playstyle itself, it's okay to put it on their expanded spell list.
That's because you're basically trading an invocation they would have to pick for a spell slot.
Right, and that's a really good deal. But if that's not the case, then those spells shouldn't be on the expanded spell list, because the Warlock can just pick them if they want them anyway.
Some level 3 options instead would be Spirit Guardians, Fireball, Revivify, and Stinking Cloud.
Right, and for 4th level, they could pick a spell like Death Ward, Phantasmal Killer, Fire Shield, Greater Invisibility, or Guardian of Faith. All those would feel thematic with this Warlock, and they're not already on the Warlock spell list. Terrifying Aura and Hallucinatory Magic. Now, we're going to cover both of these, and then we're going to give our opinions on them after, because we're pretty sure that these could be combined pretty easily, so we're just going to do all of it at once. Terrifying Aura. At 1st level, you can emanate an air of psychic terror in a 15-foot radius. When a hostile creature comes within range of your aura, they must make a Wisdom saving throw equal to your spellcasting DC. Each creature can only be affected by this ability once every 10 minutes. Now that's really cool. You don't see a lot of all the time on auras on subclasses.
And that's the problem. It's clunky, and it's going to slow down your game a lot just to track it.
Now an all the time on aura that does stuff like this is going to be a pain in the ass to track, because it affects every hostile creature that comes within your aura.
Also, affecting a creature every 10 minutes is meaningless as a game mechanic.
Right, it's just not going to come up in regular combat, and it's just one more thing that you have to keep track of now. Now, it doesn't say it in the text, but we're assuming that if they fail their spell save DC, they're going to have to roll on this table. Now, you roll a d8, and there's some pretty interesting and fun options, although they specifically don't mention that they cause a fear effect. These all do something around the idea of the creature being scared, like dropping their weapon or not being able to attack.
But frightened as a condition is different. They're all pretty fun.
Now, Hallucinatory Magic. Also beginning at 1st level, when you cast any spells as a free action, you can choose for that spell to target the mind of your foe. You can do this a number of times per long rest equal to your charisma modifier. Now that's changing in Dungeons & Dragons. They used to do this, but they're shifting a lot more towards proficiency bonus times per day.
It scales better as the character levels.
Any spell cast in this way is visible only to the affected creature. If it's a spell that deals damage, it deals an additional 1d4 damage as psychic damage. Now that's really cool flavor, but that's an awkward way to say that.
And it creates the potential for a lot of abuse. Basically, your charisma times per long rest, you can have a spell deal an additional 1d4 psychic damage.
And only the affected creature can see the spell.
That's fun, but it should probably be taken completely out.
Right, having only the creature being able to see the spell is pretty meaningless inside the game. It adds a lot of complexity to spellcasting for something that isn't practically useful inside most combat encounters.
And if you want to do it for role-playing, there's already spells that do this.
Now, we think this would work a lot better if it was a lot closer to, say, the Fey Wanderer's ability. They get dreadful strikes, and if you had it work like that, you could say, when you hit a creature with a spell attack, you can deal an extra 1d4 psychic damage to the target, which can only take this extra damage once per turn. Now, we think that this ability and your Terrifying Aura ability should probably just be combined into one ability.
You could limit the Hallucinatory Magic to only being able to affect creatures within the area of your Terrifying Aura.
Right, and if you did this, it would encourage a much more hit-and-run style of combat.
Now you could combine this into something very similar to what the Undead Warlock got in its form of Dread.
Right, now the Undead Warlock came out in the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Their first ability, Form of Dread, is kind of like a rage mechanic, and you could do the exact same thing with this. Terrifying Aura, first level Soul Eater feature. You can manifest an aspect of your patron's dreadful power. As a bonus action, you can emanate an aura of psychic terror in a 15-foot radius from yourself for 1 minute. You gain the following benefits while doing so. When you hit a creature with an attack while it is in the area of your Terrifying Aura, you can deal an extra 1d4 psychic damage to the target, which can take this extra damage only once per turn. When a creature takes psychic damage from this feature, you can force it to make a Wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. If it fails the saving throw, the target must roll a 1d8 on the table below and is subject to the effect until the end of your next turn. You can create this aura a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Now, we think combining these two features into more of a rage mechanic like this is going to be way more useful and fun for the Warlock.
Soul Shackle. At 6th level as a free action, you can use an Eldritch tether to chain the soul of a recently killed creature to yourself.
You are able to store a number of souls equal to double your Warlock level. While you are storing these souls, the essence of Karybdiss gnaws away at your existence, preventing you from sleeping while taking a long rest. It causes your long rest to only restore your spell slots and hit points, and prevents any exhaustion level reduction. Additionally, you must take a DC 10 Constitution saving throw to avoid increasing your exhaustion level by 1. Now, we think they mean you have to make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw.
And this is pretty cool as a mechanic.
Right, but there's some things that are very confusing in there. Like, what exactly is a recently killed creature?
Is that a creature that died within the last minute, day, year? Did you have to kill it?
Right, and do you have to be able to see this creature? Also, we like the bit about using exhaustion. Exhaustion could do some pretty nasty things.
But a simpler way to say this would be that you are unable to reduce your exhaustion level from a long rest while you have any souls shackled to yourself.
Now, a better way to do this might be to make it kind of like Dark One's Blessing on the Fiend Warlock, where when you reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points, you can then tether their soul to yourself as a free action.
You could also make it so that any creature that's reduced to 0 hit points within the area of your Terrifying Aura is automatically shackled.
Right, and if they're combining Terrifying Aura and Hallucinatory Magic like we suggested, then this would limit it to whenever you're using that rage mechanic.
This would help limit soul collection.
Now, the second part of this feature, you're able to devour these souls. Once you have souls tethered to yourself, you can then devour these bound souls to produce a variety of effects. You can devour 2 souls to cast a known cantrip as a bonus action, and this can't be combined with any other cantrip this turn. Now, basically, by saying that, they're saying that you can't cast any other spell at all that turn, because if you cast a spell as a bonus action, the only spell you can cast with your action is a cantrip.
Honestly, this isn't necessary.
You can devour 5 souls to reduce your exhaustion level by 1. You can devour 6 souls to regain a spell slot.
That's cool.
And you can devour 10 souls to regain the use of an Arcanum. When you get this feature at level 6, you can only tether 12 souls to yourself total. That does go up as your level, but you can use all these features all at once.
The problem is, if you have 1 soul or 3 souls shackled to yourself, you can't get rid of them.
Right, there's no mechanic here to be able to release souls if you have just 1 remaining.
This is bad because it means Karybdiss is going to start gnawing on your essence. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Now, a simple way to fix this would be to make it so that they can just simply expel the souls as a free action with no effect.
That would work.
Or you could give them a feature that would let them devour a single soul, like let them spend a hit dice as a bonus action by devouring a single soul.
We also think that you should lower the number of souls needed to reduce your exhaustion level by 1 to 3 souls instead of 5.
Other than those two changes, this is a pretty cool ability. I love the idea of using exhaustion and souls and devouring these things. It's very Warlocky, it's very World of Warcrafty.
And it's pretty unique to this class.
Devouring Cascade. At 10th level, your connection to Karybdiss grows even stronger, and you are flooded with the Great Souleater's profane power. You can now cast the following spells at will by gaining a level of exhaustion. Dimension Door, Mass Cure Wounds, Sending. Now that's a pretty wicked and unique feature. You're able to spend exhaustion to cast spells.
We love it. No notes.
Sacrifice Soul. At 14th level, once per short rest, you can force a target to make a wisdom save against your spellcasting DC. If your target is already under a magical charm effect from you, they have disadvantage on the save roll. If they fail, they become paralyzed. They may roll to free themselves from the effect at the end of their turn. If they remain paralyzed due to this effect for 5 rounds or 30 seconds, Karybdiss consumes their soul, killing them instantly. Now that's really cool and pretty powerful. It's like a combination of Bestow Curse and Hold Person.
And it's definitely very thematic.
But it has a few problems. One, this is pretty powerful. Paralysis is amazing to cast on an enemy.
But this definitely should be once per long rest, not short rest. That would keep it in line with the power level of the other Warlock subclasses.
Now right here it says you can force a target. They probably should have written creature there.
But that's a little nitpicky on our part.
Also, it doesn't mention if you need to be able to see the creature to do this. You probably should.
Also, is it an action, bonus action, free action?
The text actually doesn't say what it is.
It also doesn't address what happens if the creature doesn't have a soul, like if it's an undead or a construct.
Also, having this take 5 rounds to take effect is a really long time given the way combat mechanics work inside Dungeons & Dragons.
The average combat is balanced around 3 rounds.
Right, and if that's the case, it means that you're virtually never going to see this get pulled off.
So it should probably be reduced to 3 rounds, or when the creature fails the saving throw 3 times, including the initial save.
Now we think a better way to write this ability would be, at 14th level, once per long rest, as an action, you can choose a creature that you can see within 90 feet of you. The target must then succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC or be paralyzed. If the target is under a charmed or frightened condition from you, it has disadvantage on its saves against this feature. At the end of each of its turns, the target can make another wisdom save, freeing itself from the effect on a success. If the creature fails the save 3 times, including the initial save, it dies and is disintegrated as your patron consumes them. A disintegrated creature and everything it is wearing and carrying except for magic items are reduced to a pile of fine gray dust. The creature can be restored to life only by means of true resurrection or a wish spell. And that's it. This is all we think you're going to need to get started looking at the Souleater Warlock from the new Auroboros Lawbrand campaign setting.
For our final thoughts, we love this subclass. They did a great job.
They came up with some really cool and interesting features using the exhaustion. You can collect souls. You have a new pack boon, new invocations. It's really well done.
Despite the errata that we mentioned, turning life energy in the form of souls into exhaustion levels in yourself and turning them into arcane power is a very cool and pretty classic feature, and the class is totally playable as is.
Right, there's nothing about this class that would keep you from playing with it and having a great time. The errata and fixes that we mentioned are honestly just our opinion.
Feel free to enjoy this class. With the flavor alone, you'll have a great time.
And you can re-flavor this for any campaign setting. It doesn't have specifically to be to Lawbrand. You could bring this into the Forgotten Realms, you could bring this into Exandria, Dark Sun, Ravenloft.
The possibilities are limited only by your imagination.
Anyway, that's it. Tune in next time. We're going to be covering more of the subclasses and racers from the Ouroboros Lawbrand campaign setting.
Till next time, have fun gaming.
Right, remember, we love you all. Have a good one, and... It's time for school yet?
Bye.